All right, indicator 17.4 is looking at monomials kind of through the lens of geometry. So the two equations that you need to have in your notes, and if you're at home, pause the video and write these down, is that area of a rectangle is length times width, and area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, or, and it's the same thing, but another way to look at it is base times height divided by 2. All right, so my first example here, example number 1, is a rectangle. And because order of multiplication does not matter, it does not matter which one you call length and which one you call width, okay? So we have area equals, and then it's just, I don't care, it doesn't matter, length times width or vice versa, it doesn't matter. But you're gonna have 6xy squared times 4x squared y. And this is where what we did yesterday comes in, okay? So area equals, and I'm usually lazy, I'll just tell you this right now. I usually just, once I write area once, I usually just put an equal sign all the way down, and I'm fine if you do that. So first thing you do is you multiply your numbers, right? So 6 times 4 is 24, and then one base at a time. So I've got my x's, so I'm gonna write my base of x. And this is x to the 1 and x to the 2, which is x to the 3. And then lastly, I have my y's. Okay, so my base, I keep my base. Y2 and Y1 is Y3. So your final answer of your area of this particular rectangle is this. Now this looks really weird because it's not a number, but because we don't know the value of x and y, this is as good as you can get. Now, technically, you should put units squared, okay? I'm not a stickler on that. Now, if this actually said feet and feet, okay? If it said inches or feet or centimeters or meters or something, I would want you to label it feet squared, centimeters squared, whatever, okay? Because the problem does not give you a unit, I am not real picky on you actually writing the word unit squared, okay? If it's something that you want to get in the habit of, you can. When I taught my algebra at the high school, I never required my students to write that, but just know that because it's, you know, side times side, again, if it's centimeters here and centimeters here, then your answer would be centimeters squared, because anything times itself, you write it as squared. So if you get a unit, you can use it in your answer. If you're not given a unit, as far as my class is concerned, I'm fine if you don't put any kind of label on it, okay? All right, so now let's look at a triangle as an example. And again, the formula, and I'm going to do it both ways, okay? I'll show you both ways. You can pick whichever way you think is the easiest for you, okay? So the first way is area equals 1/2 times base, which is 7c squared, times height, which is 8c. So for now, I'm going to leave the 1/2 alone. And I'm going to take 7 times 8, which is 56. And then c squared times c to the 1 is c cubed. And then for the final step, take half of 56, which is 28, and c squared. When your number like 56 is even, doing it like this is fine, okay? Where I think it's easier to leave it or to do it the other way is when that number isn't even and it doesn't easily divide by 2. It can kind of make your answer look a little wonky, and I'll show you what I mean. So if you do it the other way, area equals base times height over 2, you're going to see, what's the matter? Oh, yeah, thank you. Yep. I just didn't drop it down when I wrote it. Thank you very much. You want to grab your piece of candy? Sorry, it's supposed to be 3 cubed. It's supposed to be c cubed. All right, so using the other equation, I'll show you, you end up with the same answer. Okay, base times height is still 7c squared times 8c over 2. You still get 56c cubed over 2, and you still get, whoops, half of 56 is 28c cubed. So you still get the exact same answer either way, okay? This isn't one of the examples, but I will show you an example of where you doing it the base times height over 2 is a little bit easier. So let's say we get down to our final answer of 1/2 times 27a squared, right? Well, you can't take, I mean, you can, you'd get a decimal, but typically we don't write answers like that. So you would have to then convert it to 27a squared over 2. Right? So you just have to know that 1/2 times that means putting that whole thing over 2. Or if you just wrote it right off the bat, 27a squared over 2, then it just saves you a step and that would be your final answer. And you wouldn't have to come down here and write it like this. So that's for me personally why I like using the BH over 2 as opposed to the 1/2 BH. It's the exact same thing because 1/2 times something is the same as putting it over 2. Okay. All right, let's see. Let me do one more example. Actually, we're going to do 2 more examples. Sorry. So this is example number 3. And again, we're going to use, I'm going to go ahead and use the base times height over 2. Okay. So base is 6a squared b squared times the height, which is 5a squared b squared, all over 2. 6 times 5 is 30. A squared times a squared is a to the 4th. B squared times b squared is b to the 4th. And then your last step would be dividing 30 in half. So that would be your final answer. Any questions on the first 3 examples? We just have one more and then I'll set you loose with your homework. All right, the last example, and that's actually supposed to be a B. It got erased. There we go. And this is another example of where the over 2, I think, really kind of helps a little bit. So we've got area equals base times height over 2. So in this case, that is a cubed b squared times a squared b all over 2. So no numbers across the top to multiply. So just a cubed times a squared is a to the 5th. B squared times b to the 1 is b3 over 2. And that's just your final answer. There is nothing to divide by 2. So you just leave it like that. Again, I think this is another example of where using BH over 2 helps, because if you had used the 1/2 times base times height, you would have gotten 1/2 a to the 5th b cubed. Okay, that you would have been there. And then you would still have had to write a5 b3 over 2 as your final answer instead of leaving it like this. So that is why I particularly like using the BH over 2. All right. Okay, that is all for the notes. The homework assignment, for those of you at home, you'll open this up on Cami. The top half is a review of everything from 17.1 through 17.3. And then the bottom half, there are 6 problems that are the geometry problems from today. So if you're at home and you need anything, shoot me an email, let me know. I can either help you via email or I can open up an individual Google meeting to help you that way as well.